So, Renee, we are very happy to be here in this atmosphere. Maybe something you're more familiar with, this type of theater. But what do you anticipate when you walk out onto the field over at MetLife, where 80,000 people will be in stands, 160 million Americans will be watching? Did I just scare you a little bit?
Well, I haven't been sleeping as it is, and now I expect the last few nights to be equally rough. But it's pretty overwhelming. The size of the audience, obviously, for anybody, even people who are used to stadium audiences don't have a television audience this large. But I work in a world that is completely no tech, zero amplification, and all live acoustic music. So I expect to be really distracted by the amount of sound coming from the system, from the size of the stadium, from the audience, and also the visual of the Jumbotron. So I'm very excited about the whole thing, and I'm trying to prepare as best as I can.
Okay, we'll open up to some questions here, and as always, please introduce yourself by name and your outlet. I know this guy, and that's Kevin Frazier.
Kevin Frazier from The Insider. How are you doing, Renee?
Hi, Kevin.
You've performed at some pretty big venues, the Beijing Games, Buckingham Palace, the Nobel Peace Prize. So how does that rank, or how do those rank with the Super Bowl and being on that stage?
Well, they give me a sort of some experience in that respect. Certainly the Queen's Jubilee last year was quite large, the Obama Gala, and there have been I've done some great events like that, and I also opened for the Nationals in Washington a couple of years ago. So but the television audience makes this the biggest. There's nothing else like it. Luciano Pavarotti sang phenomenally for the World Cup one year, and it changed his life, changed his career entirely. And the national anthem is something that everybody knows and feels so strongly about. So above all, I feel a tremendous sense of responsibility to the 200th anniversary of the national anthem. That's a great honor.
Okay, we have a question from, I think, your hometown,
Yes.
from Rochester.
Oh,
Renee, Mike Catalana, WHM in Rochester. Even
Mike.
with all you've accomplished in your career, how aware are you of the added excitement this is bringing back to your hometown, and in particular at the Eastman School?
well, I'm really excited about that, and I'm also thrilled. First of all, Rochester's been very kind to me. They constantly refer to me being a hometown girl, which is true. That's where I grew up, and I want to thank Rochester for preparing me for singing in the cold. Because as we're fond of saying, we upstaters, when we're even living in New York, I've spent my adult life in New York City, oh, this is nothing. And we also know how to drive in this weather. So I'm proud to be a kind of a person who's lived in snow for a long time.
That's right, and we were talking a little bit before. The gentleman who came up with the idea of this particular program to have you is Bill Creasy, who went to St. Lawrence University, which is in Canton,
yes.
New York, right next to Potsdam, where you went to college.
Absolutely,
so
yes.
You know a little thing about being cold.
What is it, two seasons, winter and July? Or
That is
something
correct.
Like that, yeah.
Next question here is Sandy Kenyon.
Sandy Kenyon, Channel 7. Ms. Fleming, a couple of years ago when you recorded your rock album,
Hi, Sandy. Yes.
you told me that you have to keep risks to keep it fresh, to keep the career going.
That's right.
Where does singing in the Super Bowl fit in with that plan?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I would say this is, it's an enormous risk because, again, of the spotlight. I mean, I've been completely overwhelmed. And, the people are placing bets on my gloves and the length of the song and the amount of interest and the interest that's coming from worlds that I didn't even know existed has been really exciting and fascinating. High school friends are checking in and, people that I haven't heard from in 100 years. So it's been fascinating to see the Super Bowl seems to touch everybody. It's a big audience. So I would rate this number one. Definitely. In my lifetime, it will certainly be number one.
We'll go to Megan here.
Hi, Renee. Megan Alexander from Inside Edition. Congratulations on being the first opera singer
Thank you,
to
Megan.
perform at the Super Bowl. It surprises a lot of us, I think, because we can't wait to hear you hit that glorious high note at the end of the anthem. Everybody says the national anthem is one of the most difficult songs to sing.
Oh.
Can you talk about your preparation?
I'm glad you asked. I'm so glad you asked about that. Well, I've been really fortunate because when the NFL asked me to do this, it was really up to me to decide how I wanted to do it. And given I think the strength of feeling behind this and the patriotism that we have in this country, I really wanted to sort of present it in a quite serious way. So we have the New Jersey Symphony, we have the top singers from 4 military choirs coming from DC, the Navy, the Marines, the Army, and the Air Force. And it's been a beautiful arrangement by Rob Mathis. And, we're going to town. Vera Wang is doing a spectacular, I thought it would be a coat, but it is something very special. So I wanted to make this my own, as it were. And, I thought about bringing dancers and scenery and really making it into an opera. But no, we want to keep it sort of low-key. And I'm just excited because I wanted to do something reverent and exultant and that really speaks of what the history of the anthem is.
Okay, next question. We have
And by the
Steve
way,
from-
speaking to the difficulty of the song, sorry, I got lost there. The difficulty of the song is that the way it's done now with the interpolated high note at the end, it's not an octave and a half, it's 2 octaves. So for everyone and anyone who tries to sing this, and this is not, I wouldn't even try this at home. For those of you who are non-singers, that's how hard it is. It's really a big, big gesture. And then when you add the distraction and the pressure to remember this text, which we learn by rote as children and never think twice about, and then all of a sudden you're on the spot and you're really saying the words with a heartfelt manner, and then you start saying, no, wait, what was that again? And it's very challenging. It's extremely challenging. It's a lot of pressure.
Steve from CBS.
Hi, Renee. Steve Futterman from CBS. I want to ask you, you have performed at other venues. Many of us remember that very heartfelt moment when you did Amazing Grace at the World Trade Center.
Thank you.
Can you talk about how you are able to not get involved and do your job? The players talk about being in the zone, that once the game begins, they don't really think it's the Super Bowl, it's a regular game. How are you able to maybe separate yourself from any emotion connected to the song, to the moment?
I've been a little bit worried about that. And if this is the biggest event I'll ever sing, the 9/11 memorial a month after on the site of Ground Zero was by far the most difficult. And for that very reason, you're looking at a sea of people who are in shock and in mourning, and how to provide something for them without indulging yourself. It's the same kind of thing. And frankly, when I first heard the arrangement, I kept crying when I would try and sing along with it because it's moving. And the piece is moving. And people have come up to me and said, please do it this way. And they get teary. This is what I've said about this level of caring. So the preparation for that is I've probably sung through it in my mind and vocally 800 times in the last 3 weeks. So it's a lot of repetition. It's a lot of hope that muscle memory will take over and carry you through. And it's the same. I think of the athletes. If I'm feeling that pressure, imagine what they feel. And they do this all the time. It's extraordinary.
Okay, we have time for one more question from John Hetty, Fox.
Hi, good afternoon, first of all.
Good
John
afternoon.
Huddy, Fox 5 here in New York. Did you ever think in your wildest imagination that you would be singing at the Super Bowl? Did you, growing up, hope that you would sing at the Super Bowl? And having said that, who are you rooting for?
I actually love singing. I produced with the Kennedy Center American Voices, a celebration of Americans singing across genre. And I am interested in it. I celebrate it. Never in the history of the world has there been the interest in singing that there is right now with all of the reality television shows and also the sitcoms. And they're worldwide at this point. So, every month a new 9-year-old comes forward and sings one of my arias. So it's extraordinary. And so I celebrate all of the singers who've come before me, who have really tried to put their own individual stamp on the national anthem for the Super Bowl. If you'd asked me 6 months ago if I'd be doing this, I would have laughed and said that's ridiculous and changed the subject. So it is surprising to me because in the history of the Super Bowl, as you probably now know, there have only been very commercially successful top pop, mainstream, sometimes country performers, and never anybody outside of that. So this is way outside because we are in a niche, but we belong to a tradition that's 400 years old that has range at the heart of it, among other things. And certainly, it will be something quite different. And I applaud the NFL for making this step and doing something quite courageous. I'm shocked and surprised and absolutely thrilled, honored, and I applaud them for really doing something different this year. Who am I rooting for? Okay, so this is my NFL history, right? I grew up in Rochester, but my family were Pennsylvania Steelers, diehard Steelers fans, and this is ancient history because the names that I know, Terry Bradshaw, and you know that's who was playing then. And then I took a break to pursue this thing called opera for 30 years, and now I'm back, and I married a couple of years ago a guy who's an absolute Redskins fanatic with his children. So I have joined forces. So this year I'm neutral, and I'm just excited to be here. Very thrilled.
And we're excited to have you here, Renee. Thank you very much. If you wanted to stand right here.